My crazy ex-girlfriend tried to stab me, then assaulted me in front of the cops. She was put in the psych ward and kept reaching out, begging me to forgive her and take her back. Trisha was my first kiss when I was 15, and she somehow found me 20 years later. She messaged me on MySpace asking me if I would take her V card. I said yes, and while we were doing it, she said she loved me. I don't know why, but I said it back. She asked me to be her boyfriend, and I impulsively said yes. Fast forward 3 months. We're breaking up every 2 weeks. I had gotten back together with her 5 times at this point, until one day I had enough. I broke up with her for real, and she started sobbing. I stood firm, however, and went back to my room. I was browsing the web looking for apartments, when out the corner of my eye I noticed the shadow of a butcher knife. I saw it violently swing downwards, but thankfully I dodged it as it slammed down on the keyboard. She swung it at me a few more times, and even got me in the arm. Despite this, I somehow wrestled it away and held her until she calmed down. I told her I was leaving, and if she tried to stop me, I'd call the cops. Well, she ran back to the kitchen, grabbed another blade, and started hurting herself. At that point, I dialed 911 and ran outside. The cops showed up, and as I was talking to them, I heard screaming. I turned around and I saw her, running at me full speed. The cops didn't seem to know what to do. They stood there, stunned, as Trisha sprinted toward me, screaming. Her hair flew behind her. I felt panic in my chest. I tried to back up, but I tripped over my own feet. Before I could hit the ground, she was on me. Her hands clawed at me, and her nails dug into me too. I pushed her away, but she came at me again. I tried to grab her wrists to stop her, but she kept swinging. I could hear the cops shouting, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I just knew I had to keep her from hurting me. I managed to grab her arms and hold them tight, but she kept struggling against me, trying to get free. Then, I felt someone grab me from behind and pull me away. It was one of the cops. Another cop grabbed Trisha and pulled her back. She kicked and screamed, still trying to get to me. I backed up, breathing hard. My face stung where she had scratched me, and I could feel the blood running down my cheek. The cops held her back as she fought against them. "Why are you doing this?" she yelled at me, tears streaming down her face. "I love you. I need you." The cops started dragging her toward their car. She screamed and kicked, but they managed to get her in the back seat. One of the cops stayed with me, asking if I was okay. I nodded, but I couldn't take my eyes off Trisha. She was still screaming, her face pressed against the window of the cop car, her eyes locked on me. As they drove away, I felt a mix of relief and guilt. I didn't know what was going to happen to her, but I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I went back inside, my hands shaking. I sat down at my computer trying to calm down, but all I could think about was her face, her screams. A few days later, I got a call. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered it anyway. "Hello?" I said. "Is this you?" A woman's voice asked. "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Nurse Daniels," she said. "I'm calling from the hospital. Trisha was admitted to our psychiatric ward. She's been asking for you. She won't calm down unless she sees you." I was quiet for a moment. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hang up and forget everything that happened, but another part of me felt like I needed to go. I needed to see her, to make sure she was okay. "I'll be there," I said finally. When I got to the hospital, a nurse met me at the front desk. She led me through a series of locked doors, each one closing with a heavy thud behind us. The sound echoed in the long, empty hallways, making my heart race. Finally, we stopped outside a small room with a thick window. Trisha was inside, sitting on a bed, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked so small and scared. When she saw me, her eyes widened. She jumped up and ran to the door, but it was locked. She banged on the glass, shouting my name. The nurse opened the door, and Trisha ran to me, wrapping her arms around my neck. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't mean to. I don't know what happened. Please forgive me." I stood there, not knowing what to do. I wanted to push her away, but I also wanted to comfort her. I patted her back awkwardly, trying to calm her down. "It's okay," I said quietly. "It's okay." She pulled back and looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "I love you," she whispered. "I know I messed up, but I love you so much. Please don't leave me." I took a deep breath. "Trisha, I can't do this," I said. "You need help. Real help. I can't be the one to save you. You have to save yourself." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I will," she said. "I promise. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't give up on me." I looked at her, my heart aching. I didn't know if I could do this, if I could keep seeing her, but I also knew I couldn't just leave her like this. "I won't give up on you," I said finally. "But you have to get better. You have to do this for yourself." She nodded again, her grip on my arms loosening. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll try. I promise I'll try." I visited Trisha every week after that. At first it was hard. She was still upset, still scared, but slowly she started to get better. She started to smile more, to talk more. She told me about her therapy sessions, about how she was learning to control her emotions, to deal with her anger and fear. I could see the change in her. She was still the same person, but she seemed calmer, more at peace. She wasn't perfect. perfect, but she was trying. She was getting better. One day she told me she was getting released. I didn't know how to feel about it. I was happy she was doing better, but I was also scared. I didn't know if I was ready for her to be back in my life full time. I want to try again, she said softly. I know I messed up, but I want to make things right. I want to be with you, the right way this time. I looked at her, unsure of what to say. I cared about her, but I didn't know if I could trust her again. I don't know, Trisha, I said finally. A lot happened. I don't know if we can just go back to how things were. She looked down at her hands, her shoulders slumping. I know, she said quietly. I don't expect everything to be perfect. I want a chance to show you I'm better now, please. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about everything that had happened, all the pain and fear, but I also thought about the good times, the times when things were good between us. I thought about the girl who gave me my first kiss, the woman who was trying so hard to make things right. Okay, I said finally, but we take it slow. No rushing into things. We do this right. She nodded, a small smile on her face. Okay, slow. I can do that. We started dating again, slowly this time. We went on dates, just simple things like going to the park or getting coffee. We talked a lot about our lives, our dreams, our fears. We were getting to know each other all over again. Trisha was different now. She was more careful, more thoughtful. She still had her moments, times when she got upset or scared, but she was better at handling it. She was better at controlling her emotions, at not letting them take over. One night we were sitting in her apartment, watching a movie. She looked over at me and smiled. I'm glad we're doing this, she said. I'm glad we're taking it slow. I nodded, smiling back. Me too, I said. I think it's good for us. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. I love you, she said quietly. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I want to be the best I can be for you. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. I love you too, I said. And I know you're trying. I see it every day. We sat there for a long time, just holding each other. I felt a sense of peace, a sense of calm. I knew things weren't perfect, but I also knew we were on the right path. A few months later, Trisha moved in with me. It was a big step, but we both felt ready for it. We were doing well, and I felt like we were finally in a good place. At first, things were great. We spent our days together, laughing and talking, enjoying each other's company. We cooked meals together, watched movies, and went on long walks. I felt like we were a real couple, like we were finally moving forward. But then, the cracks started to show. Trisha still had her moments, times when she got jealous or upset over small things. She would get angry if I didn't text her back right away, or if I talked to another woman. She would get moody and distant, and I never knew what would set her off. One night, we got into a big fight. She was upset because I had gone out with some friends without telling her. She accused me of not caring about her, of not wanting to be with her. I tried to explain that it was just a misunderstanding, that I hadn't meant to upset her, but she wouldn't listen. She stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. I sat on the couch, feeling frustrated and hurt. I didn't know what to do. I cared about her, but I didn't know if I could keep dealing with this. I didn't know if I could handle her ups and downs, her mood swings. A few hours later, she came back. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked exhausted. She sat down next to me, her shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know I overreacted. I get scared sometimes. I'm scared of losing you. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Trisha, I'm not going anywhere, I said, but you have to trust me. You have to believe that I care about you, that I want to be with you. She nodded, wiping away her tears. I know, she said. I'm trying. I really am. I put my arm around her, pulling her close. I know you are, I said, and I'm here for you, but we have to work on this. We have to work on our communication, on trusting each other. She nodded again, resting her head on my shoulder. Okay, she said quietly. I'll try. I promise I'll try. We kept working on our relationship, trying to make things better. We went to therapy together, talked about our issues, and tried to find ways to communicate better. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to making it work. One day, we were sitting in the park, watching the sunset. Trisha looked over at me, her eyes serious. I love you, she said. I know I'm not perfect, but I love you, and I want to spend my life with you. I felt my heart skip a beat. I reached into my pocket, my hand shaking. I pulled out a small box and opened it, revealing a simple ring. I love you too, I said. Will you marry me? Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she might say no, but then she nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. We hugged each other tightly, both of us crying. I felt a sense of relief, a sense of joy. I knew things weren't perfect, but I also knew we were in this together. We were a team, and no matter what happened, we would get through it together. Life after the engagement wasn't perfect. We still had our ups and downs, still had our fights. Trisha still had her moments of jealousy and insecurity, but she was getting better at handling them. She was learning to trust me, to believe that I wasn't going to leave her. We moved forward with our lives, planning our future together. We talked about getting married, about buying a house, about starting a family. We were excited about the future, about all the possibilities, but there were still challenges. Trisha still had her bad days, days when she felt overwhelmed or scared. She would get moody and distant, and I never knew what would set her off. But I was learning too. I was learning to be patient, to be understanding, to be there for her when she needed me. One day, we were sitting on the couch, watching TV. Trisha looked over at me, her eyes soft. "I'm sorry for everything," she said quietly. "I know I've put you through a lot. I'm just so grateful that you stuck by me." I smiled, reaching over to hold her hand. "I'm grateful for you too," I said. "I know it hasn't been easy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love you, and I'm so glad we're in this together." She smiled back, her eyes shining. "Me too," she said. "I love you too." We sat there for a long time, just holding each other. I felt a sense of peace, a sense of contentment. I knew things weren't perfect, but I also knew we were on the right path. We were building a life together, one day at a time, and no matter what happened, I knew we would get through it together.